hello. I'm so glad you could be here. My name is Frank DeCaro, and my pronouns are he, him, and Chubsy Wubsy. Thank you. I do feel like my name should be Dr. Frank Silky Ganache DeCaro, but we're not going to go there. So, spoiler alert, I want to read you the last chapter of the book. I know. It is what it is. So it kind of looks at where drag is right now, or at least where I think it is right now. And I will do that momentarily. Thank you for coming. This is pretty swell. Getting your wristbands, and there are many drag luminaries. Some, what do they say, living stealth, and some not in drag at all, just as themselves here. So it's good. But anyway, so this last chapter of the book, and the book looks at drag from the earliest days of men cross-dressing in ancient Greece to right up to now and what's going on. But it kind of moves very quickly through Elizabethan times and minstrel shows and then suddenly it's 1912, and that's kind of where we start. But at the end of the book, everything has happened. There's been movies and television and the rise of the Ruvolution, as we say, with RuPaul's Drag Race. And this is what happens after that. And it's chapter 12, and it's called Eating Cleveland. And it begins with a quote from Michael Musto, and it says, "There are now more drag queens per square foot than there are Chipotles and TD Banks." Michael Musto, the great chronicler of downtown New York, and no stranger to cross-dressing himself, nailed it in 2016 when he wrote an Out.com column headlined, "There are now officially too many drag queens running around." With measured alarm, this most incisive of LGBTQ pop culture commentators wrote, quote, "My wish has come true, and I'm afraid. Everywhere you go, there are guys shaving, tucking, teasing, frosting, and trying to be funny." It's not quite the world he had wished for when he was shopping for oversized girl shoes at Lee's Mardi Gras, a now legendary cross-dressers emporium in Manhattan's then ungentrified meatpacking district. Or when he was photographed naked as Madonna in a parody of her sex book, It Is Too Much. Like Audrey 2, the carnivorous plant in Little Shop of Horrors, drag has eaten Cleveland and Des Moines and Peoria and New York, especially New York, and where you live. Drag has become so prevalent, in fact, that it's impossible to wrap your arms around what drag means, even if you're wearing batwing sleeves the size of a Jonathan Adler queen-size duvet. Is drag an unshaven queen named Conchita Wurst, as Austrian recording artist Thomas Neuwirth is known, winning the Eurovision Song Contest in 2014? Or is drag the shaved-headed, Tony-winning actor Dennis O'Hare playing a chrome-domed Liz Taylor on American Horror Story Hotel in 2015? Is drag a Golden Girls parody performed in the basement of a Mexican restaurant in Los Angeles? It might be that. Or is drag a festival in Brooklyn called Bushwig, starring queens who weren't born when that classic sitcom went off the air in 1992? Is drag two octogenarian crossdressers slugging it out for the Guinness World Records title of world's oldest drag queen? Or two young Broadway actors like Prescott Seymour and Porter Simmons find even more success as their alter egos Sutton Lee Seymour and Cacophony Daniels than they have in trousers? The answer, in a word, is yes. Drag is all of those things and so much more. Nowhere was the scope of this drag cornucopia any clearer than at the Los Angeles Convention Center on a late April morning in 2017. That day, thousands of people, young and not so young, in and out of drag, turned out for the third edition of RuPaul's Drag Con, a hugely popular annual event put together by World of Wonder, the production team behind Drag Race. From morning until night in the vast exhibition space, hundreds of retailers peddled their drag-related wares, from wigs and heels to vegan drag queen cookbooks, and photorealist drag queen shower curtains. in booths arranged along both sides of rows named Death Drop Alley and Lacefront Boulevard, while performers from all sissy that walks of drag interacted with their fans. Frank Marino, who's been impersonating Joan Rivers in Las Vegas for more than 30 years, was perched on a lame settee in model jeans and gold Versace high tops, taking pictures with a young Asian woman, while Larry Edwards, also known as Hot Chocolate, the best Tina Turner impersonator in the business, modeled geisha garb over his shoulder. Valentina, the alter ego of James Andrew Leyva, an LA kid who had been doing drag for only 10 months before he began competing on the 9th season of Drag Race in 2017, was drawing a crowd of screaming well-wishers in another corner. Meanwhile, Elvira, a cisgender ghoul last time anyone checked under Cassandra Peterson's hood, had a line 100 people deep, dying for a moment with their busty vampire idol. Glitter-bearded men, some bear-shaped, some bare-assed, were buying t-shirts with the late great Divine on them in a booth that doubled as a mini-museum to the man-born Harris Glenn Milstein. Katia, the popular queen from season 7 of Drag Race, who calls herself the sweatiest woman in show business, was working up a lather at a booth near the front of the huge hall, while in a ballroom upstairs, Mark Indelicato, the actor who played a little gay boy on Ugly Betty, before he even knew he was a little gay boy in real life, was wearing Cleopatra eye makeup and a fishnet top, discussing LGBTQ portrayals on television on a panel that included a trans man, the actor Elliot Fletcher of Faking It, The Fosters, and Shameless fame. That day at DragCon, there were go-go boys who'd been grinding all day in the same schwitzy-studded jockstraps they'd had on since the morning. But Lily Whiteass, the alter ego of actor Todd Lattimore, who had appeared in the 2010 Broadway revival of La Cage aux Folles, was rocking her second look of the day, a Rastafarian-inspired miniskirt and dreads that belied her Caucasian drag name. Early that evening, as spent DragCon attendees were sashaying away, their feet sore from walking in heels for 8 hours, I snapped a picture of the back of a drag queen wearing a potted urn on her head and square-trimmed shrubbery for shoulder pads. I posted it to Instagram, and within seconds, there was an OMFG comment on the photo. The high-fashion human hedge, it turns out, was a New York recording artist named Linux. Apparently, I should have known that. Among Linux's fans is the young man who wrote that comment, a teenage drag queen named Obscura, who, and this will make you feel old, as it turns out, is my college roommate's son. Obscure. He is developing a following of his own via social media and drag competitions in his native New York City. If he has his way, Obscura won't be obscure for very long. Michael Musto may have been right. There are too many drag queens in the 21st century to keep up with. But the great pianist Liberace, a sort of drag queen in his own unique way, was also right when he quoted his friend Mae West, a female drag queen if ever there were one. She liked to say, too much of a good thing can be wonderful. It turns out, in the right outfit, too much of a good thing can be not only wonderful, but also downright sickening. That's the end of the book. You do not know what it feels like to be old until it's your college roommate who is a grown drag queen and you're like, oh my God. Now, to celebrate, okay, now, I'm going to go around the room a little bit. This is Tupperware Corner over here, okay? Or what we call, you better burp. That's what they call it. Pam Teflon, also known as Pamtastic, is largely regarded as the first Tupperware drag queen. Aunt Cassie Roll is featured in the book as well, in the Tupperware chapter. Mama, in the corner over here, is back. That's all you need to know. Mama is back. The belle of the ball of Southern California, and we're thrilled that you're here and looking well, and your hair is as big as ever. The gentleman over here, someone came back and said, why is Michael Gross out there? That's Alex P. Keaton's father. Like, why is he there? Well, not only, yes, give him a... He made his Broadway debut in Bent many moons ago as Greta, the Nazi-sympathizing drag queen who descends from the ceiling from her spidery perch. And so that's why he's... And when I found out, we were at a party, and I mentioned I was working on a drag book, and it was like, you could have given me 50, like, asked me 50 questions, I never would have gotten that one. I never would have said, it's like, yeah, I made my Broadway debut in heels. I would never have gotten that. And he likes to say, I know, he likes to say that he made an unattractive woman. But those legs, I'm telling you, when you see the photo, it's like, everyone, maybe God doesn't give with both hands, but those legs are something else, I'll tell you.
Frank, I also tell you it's a shame I can't wrap them around my face. I was the most unattractive woman.
Well, every man in this room wishes they could do that too, so never do that. In the back, we have, before I introduce our panel, I also want to mention Tom Lank is here, Drew Drogi is here, Jack Klotnick is here, Wonder Woman there, and they do something that I think is very particular to Los Angeles. They're character actors. You wouldn't call any of them drag queens, but they're spectacularly funny and free when they put on a dress, and they're just amazing. And whether it's Zooey Deschanel or Tilda Swinton or Tom or Chloe Sevigny, who's more clear, as I say in the book, more clearly Chloe than Chloe, as Drew Drogi does, or Tanya Roberts, which I don't think has anything to do with the real Tanya Roberts, but it is genius if you ever see it. And I love Jack's character, Evie Harris.
I still got it!
She has played herself in more movies. That's what I like about it. It's like, Evie works, like you work a lot, but Evie works too, which is kind of good. Who else is here? Who's in the dress?
Vava.
There you are. Hello, John. Vava Fanculo is here, and if you're Italian, you know exactly what that means. She was Miss Best in Drag the year we moved from New Jersey to LA, and Vava is here. And Vava's on my refrigerator in New Jersey, which is what one does in a place of honor in New Jersey. And that was our first time ever at Miss Best in Drag, so it was amazing. Now, speaking of Miss Best in Drag, the reigning Miss Best in Drag, Reba Areba, is one of the goodest good time girls in Los Angeles. Whether she is dressed as a sexy taco or a very pretty piñata, she is both spicy and full of treats. She may or may not share a dressing room with another LA drag celebrity. That would be Frito-Lay of Chico's Angels. I have never seen them together. But in any guise, or around any guise, she is delightful. Ladies and gentlemen, Reba Areba. Come join us on this one. Yeah. Perfect. You're so pretty. All right, our next guest has come a very long way. You okay?
Yes.
Okay. She's not in there. The next other. No. Okay. Good. Recording artist. Children before I didn't hold me. Recording artist Alaska Thunderfuck 5000 hails from the planet Glamtron. But thank the heavens for us, she touched down on Earth on RuPaul's Drag Race. She won All Stars Season 2, and if she hadn't, I would have spit food. I was very invested in that season. Her music includes the albums Anus and Vagina. And between those two, well, it tain't no surprise that Alaska is one of the most popular queens in the lower 48. Pay no attention to the lace on her forehead, it's Alaska 5000. Welcome.
Hello.
And our final panelist, Bruce Vilanch has been putting his funny bits in other people's mouths for decades. He is also a wonderful writer. An Emmy Award winner, his credits include numerous Oscar telecasts, hold on to your sequins, the Paul Lynde Halloween special and the Star Wars Holiday special. If you've ever quoted Bette Midler, you were likely quoting Bruce Vilanch. As a performer, and he's wonderful on stage, Bruce made his Broadway debut in drag as Edna Turnblad in Hairspray on Broadway to much acclaim. You cannot stop the beat that is Bruce Vilanch. You stepped the dismount and everything. It was perfect. I love it.
Thank you. I've been waiting in the children's department.
The children's were scared.
Very scary. Isn't it? And how? They weren't sure this was Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, I'm done. Okay.
I'm wearing my old couch. Thank you. That she bought for me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hello. I want to ask each of you this to start things off. Who was the first drag performer or cross-dressing actor you remember seeing on TV or in the movies or on stage or wherever? Reba, what about you?
For me, it was Flip Wilson. Yeah, I would be at my grandma's house and she had it on, and it's come out this kind of muscular lady. She come out and she's like, "What you see is what you get." I was like, I love her. She fun. And then later I learned he was a man. Yeah, so
much later, or
yeah, much later.
Much later.
And
okay.
written by a Jew.
Crazy.
I was a Geraldine writer.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. I'm here because of this man.
The devil made me do it.
Anything we quote, it comes back to Bruce. Ultimately, it's like, is it in your...
Well,
is
in
it
drag.
Yeah, in drag, yes.
Yeah, I didn't build the Queen Mary, but well, I went there.
You know, who was the first person that you ever remember seeing in the media as cross-dressing?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I mean, it may have been like Jack Benny and Charlie's aunt, something like that. So I mean, because I'm very old, so it could have been something like that. But it was probably somebody doing Charlie's aunt or Where's Charlie, the musical version of it. But that was, or it was Carol Channing. It was one of the, that was the first Broadway show I saw. Was her Carol Channing in The Vamp, which was her flop. And every time I mentioned it, she used to say, she would call me and say, "Why do you keep bringing up that turkey?" But I don't know. I truly, I don't know. I mean, I have to, because I never thought of it that way, I guess. Isn't that bizarre? I don't know why. Maybe because I was surrounded by cross-dressers. But I never thought anybody would ever ask me that. Who was the first man you saw in drag? Because I wrote for all of them, so.
We're going to get to that later. Definitely
later.
want to do that.
Go ahead.
I'm going to come over here and sit with you guys. And gals, ladies, is what I meant. Women.
Amen.
Hi.
Hi.
I need to hear it up close. So who was the first cross-dresser?
Well, we used to rent movies all the time when I was little, and we rented the Birdcage. Yeah. So that was like my first that's what drag queens are, and like that's what they do. So when I first went to like a gay bar when I was 18 or something, I snuck in.
16.
Right. I went in and there was this queen performing, and her name was Amanda Love. It's a really good drag name. It was like in Ohio, and she was lip syncing a song, and I was like, why is she lip syncing? Like, what is that? Why isn't she singing like in the Birdcage, like Nathan Lane? So I was really shook that drag queens lip synced.
My first drag queen was the reason I wrote this book, actually, was because I needed to see in hardback a picture of Fred Gwynn as Herman Munster in drag on Munster. That was really what started this for me. I was about 3 or 4 years old, and The Munsters was my favorite show then, and either this is good or bad, it's still my favorite show. And he gets hit by a bolt of electricity and wakes up a cocktail waitress. And it happens, you know. And what I loved about it wasn't disrespectful, other than Grandpa Munster did give him wolf whistles. But his wife said, don't let the customers at the bar get fresh You know, and so that was the whole thing. But he was basically Frankenstein with sausage curls and a Victorian sort of outfit. And I needed to see that in hardback. And we found a wardrobe test shot. So it was like, so no one I'd never seen it, and so I was giddy with delight when they found that. And so that's kind of what did it. Who really, if those were the ones who were the first ones, who really impressed you among drag performers? Like who really, you're like, they're good?
Amanda Love.
Well, I have to say it was probably Milton Berle, because I'm that generation, saw Milton Berle on television, and he was always in drag, and the idea that anybody could do that and get away with it was very novel at the time. I mean, I know that he was the best possible drag queen, but he was, I mean, he was, if you view drag as women in quotes, he was in boldface quotes. I mean, he was doing it at the extreme parody of what women were like. So he was but then, you know, when I started, there was a period when I was writing for, I mean, when there were drag queen stars, like Jim Bailey and Craig Russell and Charles Pierce and Lynn Carter, and I wrote for all four of them at the same time. Don't tell them. I occasionally would swap material. You know. Occasionally.
Was writing for women in quotes different than writing for someone like Bette Midler? Or was she a woman in quotes, too?
She was a woman in quotes. I mean, yeah, that was the early criticism, like Arthur Bell, who said she's like a drag queen impersonating a woman. But that was the Divine Miss M. The Divine Miss M was a stage persona that she inhabited that was an extension of one facet of her personality. And it was, I mean, there was stuff that she took. I mean, she was inspired by drag people, but she was also inspired by Sophie Tucker and by Mae West, and who, you know, people think were drag queens too. I mean, every single one of those fabulous women has at one time or another been accused of being a man, for real. And they ask them, and they will just tell you that. I mean, Cher, you know, and people think that she's a man. Don't even go there. But so it wasn't all that different, because there were stage personalities, and stage personalities are larger than life, and they're not exactly realistic depictions of human beings. So it never occurred to me that was a problem. I mean, on the serious side, I would see Tennessee Williams plays, and all of his heroines, Blanche Dubois, and Maxine, and Nadia the Iguana, and Maggie the Cat. I mean, they were all drag queens. I mean, they were all women in quotes. They were, you know, that was his appeal. If you wanted to see real women, Arthur Miller would write that for you, you know, write The Crucible, and you'd see real Puritan women. But, I mean, fabulous creatures were what Tennessee Williams created.
Reba, what about you?
Well, first, I didn't see this person, but they influenced me. It was Charles Busch.
Yeah.
I was in El Paso, Texas. It's over there. And I read his plays in the books, and I said, oh my goodness, I love this. It's so hilarious. And when I see him in person in Die Mommy Die, I was like, oh, this is amazing. But before I got that, it was Kids in the Hall on the TV. Yeah. They showed me that drag don't have to be glamorous and beautiful. They were doing everyday ladies, Kathy with a C and Kathy with a K. And I just love how they played them natural. And then one more big influence for me is those three men in the back, Jack Plotnick, Drew Roshi, and Tom Lange. Because I see them in the stages, and I see what they bring to it, and how they explode from inside out, and the character come from there. So it's not just a man in a wig and a dress, it's like it comes out.
Yes. Who did we say other than Amanda Love? Who did we decide it was?
Well, what really inspired me to start doing drag was Tranny Shack in San Francisco. Like I went there on my 22nd birthday, and I was like, it was Duran Duran night. Yeah. And so I went, and I was like, that's me, Dad. I want to do that. I want to do that. And so I went back to Pittsburgh, and that's when I started doing drags.
And what was the Pittsburgh scene like in those? Well, wait. What I really want to know is, had they seen anything like Alaska 5000?
No. I mean, no, I don't think so. No, but like that's what I liked about it. I like being like a wacko, a weird wacko, among like really beautiful, polished, like dancing, amazing drag queens.
And yet always glamorous. Reba, what did winning Miss Best in Drag 2018 mean to you? And you were Miss May. Right? We just flipped it over the other day on the calendar. You were Miss May.
It was a May, and there's a hot porn model behind me, and that's when I decided my wig too big because I couldn't feel nothing back there. Pushing back, I go, don't lean back, Reba, don't lean back. I go, I try not to. But winning the Best in Drag show, to me, it meant I wasn't a fraud. It's because I feel like, sometimes you don't have that confidence. It's like, I'm just kind of scooting and learn doing this, but doing that, it helped me get confidence that, I can be someone, and here I am.
Did anyone else in the room compete that year? This past year? Okay, good. I can say this. You wiped the floor with everybody else.
Thank you.
Sorry about the wiping the floor joke. I know that's racist and horrible, but anyway.
But it's true. It's true. I still have the mark.
Track one, Miss May what?
Ask my husband, it's Miss May not. It's better than actually. What was it like writing for those drag performers? I mean, how does one become the go-to guy for that sort of
Well, you start with Bette Midler, and then they all kind of gravitate towards you. It's moth to her flame. I would meet them. I was a journalist at the Chicago Tribune, and they would come through town, and I would do stories on them because I thought they were fabulous. And I'd write about them, and they would do like little club engagements, and then they would call me and they would ask me to write, just the way I started with Bette when she first came to Chicago. That was the beginning of all of it. So then once I'd written for one, then they would talk to each other, and another one would call. But they all had like different kind of things. I mean, Charles Pierce actually did characters. He did a famous Betty Davis and famous Tula Bankhead, and Craig Russell had a character that was a Craig Russell character, and then he would do impressions of people as he went along. And when Carter was a real impressionist, but he was a white guy doing Pearl Bailey as a blonde. And he would come out and you would believe he was Pearl Bailey. He was perfect as Pearl Bailey. So they all had different things they did. Jim Bailey was the strangest of them because the illusion was he was Judy Garland. Yes. And he would come out as Judy Garland, or he would come out as we tried Lucille Ball, which we could never because she wasn't a singer, and his strength was that he was a big singer. But I will tell you this is actual true story. Jim Bailey was on television a lot. He was a big guest star, and he did drama things, always in drag. And in his act, he would come out as Judy Garland, and then he would go off and he'd bring on somebody else. He had two fat girls who were called the Beef Trust. I think they had that was one of their names. They had many names. They were the Something Sisters, and they would tap dance. They were fat girls tap dancing with tits flying, and that was while he was getting out of Judy Garland makeup and into Jim Bailey makeup, which took much longer to apply. And then he would come back and he would be Jim Bailey. So we're playing Vegas, the Thunderbird in Vegas, which was a big room. And I was sitting at a table in the back, and there was a convention. It was like plumbers, and they all had name tags. Hello, my name is. It was that kind of a crowd. And I was sitting at a table because it was actually crowded with this couple, a husband and wife. He was a plumber, and she was the plumber's mate, I guess. And the lights darken and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Judy Garland." And he comes out, "When you're smiling, when you're smiling." And the husband turns to the wife and says, "I thought she was dead." The wife said, "She is. This is the daughter." Where knew this happened? This actually happened.
And didn't he perform as Judy with Liza.
Well, and I saw that too. He was performing at the Thunderbird, and Anne Margaret, who is not a drag queen and probably has never been accused of being a man. That's one, because she's kept her hyphen all these years. But where that came from. Who else can you do a hyphen joke about? So Anne Margaret, and I was writing Anne Margaret's act, and she was in town, and I was like going from one hotel to the other, and Liza was in town. Liza was playing Riviera, and Judy and Liza had done an act at the London Palladium, which was a live album, and every homosexual in the world has and still has a copy of it if they're extant. And Liza's a game gal, and so they were friends. And one night he just said, "Why don't we? I know the album by heart. Why don't we do it together?" And so at 3 o'clock in the morning in the lounge of the Riviera, it was Judy and Liza at the Palladium with Jim Bailey and Liza, and the word got around the Strip. And Anne Margaret, I walked into the dressing room, she says, "Judy and Liza in the lounge, we're going now." And at 3 o'clock in the morning, it was like the Oscars and the Grammy Awards. Everybody who was in Vegas was there. I mean, it was all pre-selfie, nobody had devices. So somebody recorded it, and I think Liza has a recording of it, but I don't know, she didn't like the way
I
it
just
sounded.
get the gay side there, so I was like,
I know, I mean, it's like a life's work to unearth this thing. But yes, they did it, and they were hysterical. I mean, it was hysterical in the way that, when she turned to Jim Bailey and said, "Hello, Mama." Well, hello, Mama, with special material from the album. The place just went completely crazy because it was just so stupid and fabulous at the same time. The other thing was that they were both great. I mean, they were both terrific entertainers. So it wasn't like some lousy lounge act. It was the real deal, and it was a one-time only thing. So. And it'll be in the next edition of the book.
Yeah.
I do mention that in there because apparently Liza, he wanted to give it up, and Liza said, "If you give up doing Judy, how will I ever see Mama again?"
Oh.
I hope that's true. The book for me started with that Fred Gwynne as Herman Munster in drag photo. That's why I wanted to do the book. We're trying to turn the book into a 10-part documentary series now.
Yeah.
I hope it happens. And it is because I need to get the footage that is on YouTube. There was in 78 or 79 a primetime network Super Bowl preview special in which Jim Bailey's entrance was as Barbra Streisand in A Star Is Born in an open convertible singing "Don't Rain on My Parade" to celebrate the Super Bowl.
How did I not write that? Who?
Yeah.
Buzz Cohan? Who did that?
And then she's a cheerleader next to Minnie Pearl, if we're going to drop names, in another skit. It's the most deranged thing. I need to get that on television. I need to see that on television. Now, Alaska, I've got to ask you. I was backstage to get out who your favorites are. So I said something I thought was subtle and nice. I said if I had to save 2 drag queens from RuPaul in a fire, I would save Alaska and Bianca, and that would be the hell with everybody else, And I thought that was a nice thing. Apparently, the look on her friend's face was like, "You're a horrible person." And I was like, a little bit, not a lot, just a little. There's a horrible overlay on nice, but it's there, So anyway, you are. I was very invested in your season, and if you didn't win, I would have been horrified. What did winning Drag Race mean for you?
It wasn't that different. It wasn't that different from losing.
That was just the final where they shoot the 2 endings.
Really? It was that. I don't know, I was expecting it to be magnificent and all my self-doubt and problems in my life would be instantly gone because I had this fucking crown and this fucking shiny stick. And it was the next day happened and I was the same person, and it's not that different. I mean, losing is kind of better. It's funnier. Winning was hard. It was weird. It was I have to act like a royal queen for a year. Fuck. I was so glad when it was the next one and I didn't have to I didn't have to like do that anymore. I put the crown in a box. It's away. Like I don't want to look at it.
I was on Shark Tank, and it's better to lose because if you win, you're stuck with the shark. I mean, you got that horrible Mr. Wonderful leaning over you for the next 6 months with his money. It's better to lose and get all the hits online from people who see your thing and buy it.
Reba, how would you have felt if you had lost Miss Best in Drag?
I would have felt okay. Because you know what? I just went to have fun. But I won, so I don't have to know, right? Well, wait, I just want to say that the Best in Drag show is a fundraiser for Aid for AIDS and Alliance for Housing and Healing, and we raised $500,000 in that event. So that is the thing that really made me feel good, because you help people. Just have fun.
Alaska, how has it been having a recording career? Because I was saying before, I said I could run from here to Encino when she's singing "This Is My Hair, I Don't Wear Wigs" and when she's singing "Your Makeup Is Terrible." That particularly get you going. That's like 20 minutes into the routine. You can really run at that point. Well, how's it been going? And tell, what's the new album Vagina like? I have no idea, by the way.
Or what's vagina like?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, I don't know.
It's good. It's fun. I mean, that's what I like about drag is like you get to do like anything you want to. So I'm not a singer or a professional music artist, but I'm pretending like I am one. And so if you're pretending to be one, then you put music on iTunes and then people listen to it. So it's like a simulation of like a singer. So
But it's so dancey, but it's also, there are moments that make me laugh out loud on the 100th listen. When you say that this is the real serious part of the song, the way you say that is about the funniest delivery.
yeah, it is the serious part. You can hear it. So I like it. Like we get to do fun music. We get to sing about anything we want. Like I get to sing about getting wasted and going into nightclubs, or I get to sing about like vagina and like women empowerment and like the Me Too movement. Or like Jeremy and I have an album called Amethyst Journey, which if you want to get really witchy and crazy, like you can listen to that one. And we sing about like the earth and like what is the future of humanity. So like we get to, I don't know, we get to do whatever, we get to do it all, and I like that.
That's
what I like
very
about drag.
encouraging.
Yeah.
What was the story of Your Makeup Is Terrible? Where did that come from? Was that a line of yours and then it became a song, or?
No.
It's
I guess
really
it's-
funny if you haven't heard it.
I guess it comes from season 5 of RuPaul's Drag Race. Cause we had to like make up a perfume challenge, and one of the things was like, and I called it red for filth. And so I wanted someone to read me. I wanted the guy to whisper in my ear, and so I was like, I don't know what's like, he's gonna, your makeup is terrible. And then the kids on Twitter really liked it, so I put it on a t-shirt. The t-shirt came before the song, and then I was like, okay, well I need a song to match the t-shirt. There you have it.
Oh, that's like buying a house to match a couch. I love that.
Right?
Oh, that's so good. I love that. Bruce, how did you become Edna Turnblad? And was that your first professional drag role? Even though it's a female role, so it's not really drag, it's a female role.
It wasn't my first professional drag role. I actually, I was writing a TV series that starred Cheech, which was called Cheech. And we only got to do 3 episodes because the Writers Guild strike happened, and
Reba was in the 4th episode too.
were you on Cheech?
Yes. Well, the 4th episode.
The 4th episode. That never aired?
No.
Oh.
Pinchy's writers.
Sorry to interrupt.
I played, he was Cheech in Hollywood, and I played a gossip columnist named Luella Fella, who was a drag queen gossip columnist. She was a bearded lady. She was a lady with a hormone problem, and she was in one scene. It was at the wedding, and so we had to go to a place called the Forgotten Woman. Yes, one person said.
I remember
not
that story.
forgotten. large size for plus size gals on Wilshire, very expensive, ridiculous. And I had to get like, you know, the Mother of the Bride outfit and with the beard, and it never aired because it was, they canceled the show and it wasn't there. Jack A was the guest on the show that way. We did 3 shows. We had Don Johnson, Jack A, and Willie Nelson. And it's sitting in the vault somewhere. It's quite wonderful. So that was the first time. And then, you know, when I was on Hollywood Squares, when you're on television every night of the week, you get bizarre offers to do things. Suddenly you get, you know, I had a book. I mean, I had a million different things. And one of them was, they said, would you like to audition for Hairspray? So I thought, yes, I'll do it. I'll do it because, I mean, Hairspray, I mean, it was, I had seen it, my friends Mark Sherman and Scott Whitman wrote it, and I had seen it in Seattle when they were starting it, and Harvey Firestein was in it, and it was brilliant, and said he looked like Lucille Beachball, like red hair, and I said, yeah, I didn't believe they actually wanted me, and I auditioned, and they asked me to do it, so.
How long did you do it on Broadway?
I did it 2 years altogether. I did a year on the road. We started on, I did the first national tour, which played the Pantages. Thank you, thank you, Pantages, theatergoers. The parking lots are gone. What do we do now? And then I did a year on Broadway. I followed him in and did a year on Broadway, and it was fabulous. It was my favorite thing ever. I mean, it pushed an OCD button I didn't know I had, because you have to do it 8 times a week, and you have to, you know. The nice thing about that show is they come to party, and it's also so the atmosphere is so gleeful. But, you know, I had got new respect for people like Vanessa Redgrave. You know, you do Medea, you have to kill your children 8 times a week. I mean, that's taxing. You know, I was having a good time, and so it was pretty fabulous. And, you know, John Waters, who knew that John Waters was, you know, it was mainstream. I mean, that was the movie that made him mainstream. On the way over here tonight, driving down Beverly, I passed the new Beverly, and there's a line from the theater to La Brea. They're showing Pink Flamingos and Female Trouble. And there's a mob of people, none of whom was remotely my age. I could tell you this because I was stuck in traffic in front of the theater. And so, I mean, like, John Waters is totally a mainstream America now. And that was part of the thing that did it. Although it's a very subversive show, you know. I mean, it's interracial romance is at the center of it, and the audience always accepts that it's 2 men playing this Baltimore couple who are raising this exceptional kid, and they never question any of it. I mean, and that's part of the subversion of it, the subversiveness. That's what John did. He'll never let a woman play that role, because trust me, Lainie Kazan has been panting. Panting.
Too masculine. We can't do that. No, I was going to say, and it's also, I mean, and the big girl gets the cutest guy, which you don't get to see very often, so that's kind of
that's
a
true.
thing,
Yeah.
Too.
There's
always. I have to ask, maybe for everybody in this room, but I got to ask, what is it like when you're in the hairspray container and you're making
in the can?
entrance? You're in the can, and what's it like in the can?
You're reviewing what you've eaten earlier, because it just may sneak out onto the stage. You're in the can for 12 minutes because they move you out there because you enter and in the middle of You Can't Stop the Beat, which we called You Can't Catch Your Breath, because it's a very, very fast song. And there's a little tiny like shelf that you have to, you know, park your incredibly large can on, because there's 40 pounds of padding. There's a fat suit in addition to my own personal God-given fat suit, and there's a beaded dress that weighs 35 pounds. So you're carrying 70 extra pounds of crap around with you. And so you're happy to be sitting, but it's not exactly comfortable. You're on a little shelf, and you just wait and listen, and I would try to like stay awake, and it's hard to fall, I mean, because it's hot, you know, and it's end of the evening and it's been a long day. So I would just start reviewing the day and what I had to do tomorrow and all that kind of stuff, and listen to see if anybody had changed anything, and nobody ever did. But it was a real drill. I mean, there are many stories I've heard from people who were in similar situations who actually did fall asleep. Some of them fall asleep on stage, you know, while somebody else, if somebody else has I've worked with people who, like Joan Fontaine fell asleep during a play I was in with her in Summerstock called The Unexpected Guest. And it was an Agatha Christie, and she forgot to say a lot of stuff because she just awakened, and it set up who the killer was, and I had to reveal the killer, and I revealed the killer, and the audience went, "What?" And I had to then rewrite and explain and do the speech that she was supposed to do, and I'd look over, and she'd be looking up at me, fascinated by what I was doing. The words all sounded familiar to her, and she wasn't exactly sure why.
Alaska, when people say that drag has gone mainstream, what does that mean to you, do you think? I mean, what I think you've helped make it mainstream and palatable and kept all your subversive qualities intact, but it made it so that more people know about drag thanks to Drag Race and your music and all the other things. What does it feel like when people talk about it being mainstream now?
I think it's just more people are looking at it, like there's more eyes on it, and I think that's great. I think it's good. Like it's more like our audiences are getting younger, and like it's more young women that are fans of drag and Drag Race, and like I think that's great because the more eyes that are on it, that's good for everybody. I think the lesson of drag is that we're worshiping femininity in all of its forms. Like the divine feminine is like what we're doing. Like we're worshiping that, and I think that's something that the world needs right now, and that's like a reason why drag is exploding like it is. I think it's like an underlying thing that's really important about it.
I know, I was going to say, I think whenever you feel an oppressive tide going on politically, you're like, oh wait, I have to be even gayer. And so you do it. I do. I think that's sort of I didn't think I could write something gayer than a dead celebrity cookbook, but I did. I wrote a drag book. You know, I was like, what's gayer even? I don't know what you do that's gayer next, but I'm trying to come up with something. But I do. I think, to me, and see if I want to know your take on this, I think what's different now, because my argument in the book is that drag has always been mainstream. In the sense that you could turn on Here's Lucy in 1969, and there's Jim Bailey playing Phyllis Diller impersonator trying to pull off the fast one because Phyllis's plane didn't get there in time. So she'll go on as Phyllis. That's the whole shtick for half an hour. And it's Lucille Ball. You know, I mean, it doesn't get more mainstream than Monday Night, right? Wasn't that when it was on? So there's that. So I think it always was sort of mainstream. Flip Wilson was very mainstream. And even if it wasn't truly, even if you had to seek it out, people have been seeking it out at least through all of the 20th century. Someone was sneaking over to Finocchio's or whichever club in your town. I was finding ads in Fort Worth, and it's like, held over 28 days, the Turnabout Review, you know, and it's like Fort Worth in 64, and there's 28 days worth of business for a drag act. It's, you know, so it's always been there. I think what's different, and I would love to hear your take on this, is that drag artists are now allowed to be whole people, and they're allowed to be just Americans with sexual orientation, they don't have to pull their wig off so that guys don't get too titillated. They can be have the same hopes and dreams as anybody else. Is that something you find is a difference now? Or?
Yeah, I love that about RuPaul's Drag Race is like most of the show is actually them not in drag. And like it shows you sort of like what this community is all about. And I know that for my family, they didn't know what the fuck I was doing before I was on Drag Race. Like they were like, what are you doing out there in LA? Like my mom was scared and like had no idea. And then she saw Drag Race and it was like, yeah, you get to see like what it actually is. And I think that's good.
Oh, I think it's exciting. I really do.
Frank, I have concerns.
Yes.
Well, I think like when I first came to LA, there's a club called Drag Strip where you would go and to get people up in drag, it's like you get in free if you're dressed in drag.
Yeah.
And when we went to that, it was it felt a little naughty because you know this is not what I do during the week, and it's like on this Saturday, second Saturday, I'm gonna wear this crazy outfit and go into the drag, and it felt a little naughty, maybe a little dangerous because if you get caught by someone you didn't want to see in drag, and I think it feels like sometimes it's losing its edge. And I think a lot of what's important with drag, and it's kind of a chop, that's a man in a dress, is you get that edge and it puts people's ears up. But if it becomes too much like, oh, there's my mom, she puts me in drag and we're in drag, we do drag race together, it becomes a little, I don't know, it's too normal. So I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say. It's just I feel that drag kind of needs that edge to be as successful as it is in forms of entertainment. But I don't know. They can just worry there's too many people doing it and I'm not gonna get gigs.
I wouldn't worry about that. I don't think. You're too charming and pretty for that to happen. Bruce, what do you make of the mainstream? Did you think
look at this person who thinks he has no edge.
Bruce, was it mainstream back in the day in that sense
Well,
of
no,
people?
not mainstream. I mean, there was dressing up as women. I mean, certainly there was no bigger hit than Some Like It Hot in 1959, with two straight actors, movie stars, playing women, getting away with that. So that was mainstream. But I don't think that it was clear that they were heterosexual. In fact, the plot hinges on the two of them being straight guys. One of them is chasing Marilyn Monroe, for Christ's sake. That's how straight he is. So, really,
That's
or
pretty
how
straight,
gay he
yeah.
is. But it could go either way. I think that what Alaska says is exactly true. The personalities themselves are now human beings. They're not just people who are theatrical conceits, but we're seeing people behind them. And I think it's probably all summarized by RuPaul's closing line. Every night, if you can't love yourself, who are you going to love? Yeah. How can you love somebody else? So it's about people finding their authentic selves, which is certainly a theme culturally of the last 20 years. I mean, $100 million worth of business didn't come to Brokeback Mountain because gay people wanted to see it. It was because people who have had to suppress their authentic lives, it rang a bell with them. And that's something happening generally in the world. I mean, what we see now is, the Republicans are in such trouble that they're actually going after school systems that help kids who are putting on makeup and drag to express themselves, because they think it's a bad thing. They're going to turn into homos and they're going to turn into all this. I mean, this is their new cause. But that's because people are expressing who they really are, and that's mainstream in the public thing. So I think that RuPaul's Drag Race has certainly been like the main. I don't think anybody who was involved with it ever thought it would have that kind of impact. But it did, because once they discovered that the audience that watched the show was more female than male, and that it was a huge crossover, and that their competition was Project Runway and things like that, and it was too big for the gay channel logo, so it had to move on to a more broader based channel. I mean, that was because a general public, fueled by women, was responding to it. And it also, I've been a comedy mentor and a judge on Drag Race, and what I noticed that from the beginning, when they would, that comedy was one of the things that the girls had to do, and it was always people like Bianca, who had played clubs every night of her life, and was boom, 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 and people who were absolutely gorgeous, who had no idea how to talk. They looked great. That they couldn't compete in comedy. What I've noticed now, as it's into season 312, is they're super queens. They can do everything. They can make their own clothes. I mean, they can skateboard. I mean, they are funny and they are glamorous. They're the whole gestalt now, which didn't used to be. And that, I think, is part of the mainstreaming, is that you're seeing people who are larger than life, but at the same time, multiply skilled. And that's different. So this is a very long-winded answer.
I was going to say, it does feel, when someone comes on in their little confession moment on the show in their boy drag, and they're saying, I don't really have a personality. That kind of thing.
Right,
I don't understand. How does one become a drag queen if they don't feel like they have too much personality?
I think exactly. They must know. I mean, I've always been, like, Latrice Royale to me was an example of somebody who, if you would see this person on the street in his man's outfit, or whatever uniform he would wear for whatever job he was doing, you would just say, okay, here's like a fat black guy, and he's not, I have nothing in common with him. He's not fabulous, in other words. But Latrice Royale took the fact that he is a fat black person and turned it into a character that is incredibly fabulous because it's an extension of all of that stuff. It's that stuff in lights and neon. And I mean, that's art, first of all. And secondly, it's making a big statement. It's like I am a fabulous person. I am masquerading as nobody. But I'm actually quite fantastic. And this is allowing the world to see all of that, which is, I think, a great thing.
Reba, do you think there was a responsibility as a drag performer in our modern times to be your best self and to be a role model and to be just, someone who people can look to when you're performing?
No.
No.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, it's nice when that happens. It's good, but I think, a good drag queen is kind of like an Archie Bunker. It's like someone who mirrors what you don't necessarily shouldn't be. I think it's more effective. It's more funny, and you get your message across. It's like, oh my God, that person is horrible. But then you look at it yourself, you go, and I do that too, so I might be horrible too. Yeah, I think.
You have it's like a ventriloquist. The dummy will say things that the ventriloquist would never say because the dummy has the license to do it.
Am I the dummy?
You are your own dummy. That's the important thing. You are your own. You like that number in Chicago where she grabbed the gun. You created you are your own special sensation.
Thank you.
Who wrote that?
Alaska, what about you? Do you have to, was there I'm gonna go do drag, but I want to do it this way because of how many years? I mean, when I was a kid, every drag queen on TV, or every cross-dressing performer was a dual personality. It was John Davidson as a Carol Channing impersonator who, on the streets of San Francisco, who killed men with a hat pin. And it's a brilliant performance besides, but it still is like, and you're a psycho. Or you're in Psycho and you're Norman Bates and you're a psycho. Or all those things. When it came time to be out and in public, did you feel a responsibility to have people look up to you or to be a positive role model in the LGBTQ community?
No. When I started, we wanted to be fucking as crazy and offensive and shocking as we could. So like I was getting pissed on stage, and I would pull my dick out every fucking night. If I didn't have anything else to do or I didn't know the words, I just took my dick out. It got a reaction. But eventually,
like Wilton Burl all over again.
Right. But eventually, it was like everyone had seen my dick, so it's not shocking anymore. First of all. And also, I wanted to get into, I guess my desire to get into more places, I wanted to get on Drag Race, I wanted to be on TV, I wanted to have the opportunities. So in order to do that, you have to sneak in. And you can sneak in the door if you don't take your dick out right away. And there are ways to maintain that, punk rock, bucking the system. There are ways to maintain that while still getting in the door so you can reach more people. And I think Drag Race does that. There's a lot of subversive shit in there, but they dress it up in a pink box and sparkles. But there's a lot of subversive shit going on.
Do you think, and anyone can answer this, do you think that the door has truly opened for drag performers, or has it opened and let RuPaul through and then closed behind Ru?
No, it hasn't opened. And if you go on a typical Hollywood set and you are dressed in drag, honestly, I've seen fucking dogs get better treatment than drag queens. We have to do all our own makeup. We have to dress ourselves. We don't get a dressing room. We don't get paid. It's often just you're doing it as a favor, and that's lovely. So no, the door is not open, but let's keep banging on it.
Here, yeah.
I think the door is ajar. I'm not sure what a jar is, but I think it's the door. I think it's getting there. But I'll tell you, the worst thing is going to an audition in drag, and then they'll have you say one line and thank you, bye. It's like,
Yeah.
It's terrible. There's still a level of respect that need to go out there, because I think people see clown makeup, so these are clowns, and they don't get the respect. And you know, God bless RuPaul for everything he's done, but there's a lot of times where he's doing more and more out of drag than in drag, and that might have a lot to do with the time it takes to get ready.
Right.
But it's not all the way there.
Bruce, you're a wise one. What's your take on?
I don't know, I was just thinking about auditions. I used to go to auditions and I'd walk into a room full of people who looked like me, which I thought was impossible to find. I thought it was me and Michael Moore. I thought there's nothing. Since Shelley Winters died. So it's had to wrap my head around that thought. I wasn't aware that was how you were treated. I thought that if you're, drag queen or not, if you're called to a regular professional shoot to play a part, you are an actor like every other actor. But this is not the case with drag queens.
No, you've got to be drag and sag.
Drag.
I'll tell you my experience. I did episode 3 of Kath and Kim, and Kath and Kim go to a gay bar, and there's 3 drag queens there. They had to show up, camera ready, at 9 a.m. We sat in our trailer, touched up, and then they go, come on, we're going to the set. They drove us to the set. We sat on set for 12 hours before they shot us. And it's like, they didn't let us go back to our trailer. It's like, just touch up in the bathroom there. It's like, what are you doing? Why are we here? Why am I in drag for 12 hours? It's crazy. But they were nice.
I'm just saying, I don't know if it was because I was working on a drag book, but now I count heads. If it says 50 LGBTQ people who've changed the world, I look for drag queens. And I looked at one today, I was like, I don't see any drag queens. And that does, it doesn't make me happy, especially not, if we're gonna look back at Stonewall, there were some people who were non-binary, or in those days called themselves transvestites or drag queens or whatever word they were using at the time, but they're because they couldn't hide in a closet. We're all sitting here talking about a book from Rizzoli, so we owe it to them, and so it kind of makes me mad that drag queens are not. It bothers me that drag queens are not considered the funniest people, the ones who are funny. But you know, it's always, the funniest drag queen, or the funniest man to ever wear a girdle. But it's never, well, Alaska, you're as funny as Seinfeld, or whoever. There's not. I should have picked a better person, but you know what I mean. It's always like the funny drag queen has an asterisk next to their name that a straight male comedian doesn't have, to me, and that bugs me because it's sort of, they're just, there's nobody quicker than Lady Bunny or Jackie B, and period. It's not like there are no other drag queens. It's like, well, no one is that fast. It's like,
Well, Dame Edna.
Yes.
Who's a straight man, who's fast and well respected and works for top dollar and is a big star all around the English speaking world, bigger than he is in this country even. And so I guess he's a special case. I mean, because again, he doesn't identify as gay, maybe that's the difference. And if drag queens are now equal gay people as opposed to just people in drag, then perhaps what's happening is there's a separation going on. And maybe RuPaul knows something we don't know. And this is why he is trying to establish himself as RuPaul the entrepreneur and not necessarily RuPaul the character, except when he's on camera. I don't know. I know him, but I've never discussed this with him.
You mentioned Bruce wrote the foreword to the book, to the drag book, and I thank you for that. He said that in Britain there was a mainstream tradition for cross-dressing that isn't.
I mean, Charlie's Aunt is a British play originally, and there's always been a thing in England about men doing drag. And Danny LaRue was a gigantic star in England, and who did Hello Dolly on the West End as his Danny LaRue character playing Dolly, which is the kind of thing that Dame Edna did on Ally McBeal. He was Dame Edna playing a woman, which was staggering, and thank God required extra drugs for me to watch.
She played a character named Claire Odoms, and it was an anagram for a sitcom role. That's what the name was. Anyway,
Right.
These kinds of ridiculous tidbits are in this book.
Exactly. So yes, it always. But I mean, it's a lot of it comes from the British tradition of the theater, which of course we didn't have when they were doing all of this, and when Shakespeare was writing, we were not around, and so men were playing women's parts, and it goes, an extension of that has always been in England that there are men playing women's parts, and even at Christmas they do what they call pantos, which are elaborate musicals with pop music, things like, I did one called Aladdin and His Winter Wish, which sounds like a porno, but wasn't. And I was the Dame. The Dame is a character who is a very crazy drag queen woman. I played Aladdin's mother, of course. And Jordan Fisher played Aladdin. At the time a Disney star, and now I guess in his own megalopolis. But in England, that's Ian McKellen had done it, but a lot of straight actors have done it over the years too. So it's a big tradition there, and it hasn't translated here. It's always been more exotic because we're a much more macho country. I mean, than England. We have guns. They don't. So they kill with knives. Read the Agatha Christie stories. It's all knives and poison.
Unless you've fallen asleep, and then we don't know who did it. Actually, as you said before, so we don't know. Before we end, I just want to ask each of you what you've done. You've each done so much and really shown your bright light, and we've all followed, and I'm awed to be up here with each and every one of you. I get starstruck around the three of you. I do, and people are dying to talk to you and get your signatures in their books as well. But what do you want to do, Alaska? What's out there that you're like, I want to?
I don't know. I'm doing it. Like, I'm grateful every day I get to fucking do this and do drag. I'm just really proud to be a drag queen, and I'm grateful for that. So I don't know, the TV movie, the made-for-TV movie, the book, and the made-for-TV movie, the book, and the movie. Those are the next things.
Fantastic. Reba, what about you?
Oh, I have so many plans. I'm gonna book a bride a new dress, and no, for real, I want to make a movie. And I want to write and perform my one-woman show called Country Wrong. And I want to cure the cancer.
And that's how you win Miss Best in Drag. When it comes to, what is it? It's October. You'll have to give the crown to the next person. Will you be white knuckling it? Will you be holding onto that crown, or are you gonna?
Oh no.
Oh.
Frank, I am not the crown. The crown is not me. I am Miss Best in Drag show. But I get to go and perform another number, and I get to do fun stuff in the next show, so good times. It's October 6th.
We'll be there. And Bruce, what's on the list? What's left?
Well,
you've done so many things, and you're really my idol. You know that. He's my mentor. It's like former journalist from New Jersey, wants to perform, does perform. So it's perfect.
Wow. Well, you can come see me in the Rebel Wilson story. I'm bulking up for it. I haven't stopped doing what I do. I write. I mean, I don't have any elaborate thing. I mean, I would sure love to to do a sitcom. I'd love to go back to Broadway. I'm going to do The Drowsy Chaperone, The Man in the Chair, in Sacramento at the Music Circus, July 9th to 14th, because I like getting out there and acting, and in musicals especially, because you can be larger than life in musicals. Unless, you're Nathan Lane, and you can be larger than life everywhere. In Roman farce.
I thank each and every one of you. I thank all of you for coming out. And I said this once and I'll say it again. In all the world I do not jest, I think I love the drag queens best. So thank you. And thank you to Micah and Dusty, who's all over the place in the book, and Mama, who is there. These folks up here, Pam, Cassie, the crazy mismatched game people in the back who are brilliant. Thank you all so much. If you bought a book, get it signed by every person in this room who's in the book, at least. And anyone you want to meet, I guess that works too. So
and anybody in the children's section who you want your eye on.
I met Desmond is amazing, and he's 11. He's the fiercest little thing ever. And you know, I met this kid, and he's like a drag queen, and I'm short, and he's like this big, you know, he's a little kid. And he's there, and I said, "Would you sign my book?" And he looked, and he said, "Wait a minute, Mom!" And so this fierce little drag queen screamed for his mother, and she came over. She said, "It's okay, you can sign his book." I was like, "Okay, thank you." So it worked out. But there's a whole phenomenon of drag kids now, and it's yeah. And we've got to encourage them because people call Child Protective Services on their parents. That's the reality of it. And so yeah, they do. It's hard. They harass them because they're letting their kids be themselves. What if each and every one of us had been, you know, allowed to do more than just take that Poochie scarf and wrap it around our heads like so many of us did? Do we all do that? The scarf drawer was really fun. I don't know why. And there were Jimmy Choo shoes on Instagram today that I was like, if those came in at men's 12, I'd have them tomorrow. I really would. But we're not. Anyway, thank you all so very much. And happy Pride, everybody. Oh my God. And give it up for these folks over here. And these folks. And Mama.